This Choral Arts Shorts video is brought to you by PNC Private Bank.
Hello, I'm Anthony Blake Clark, the music director of Baltimore Choral Arts. You're about to see a really interesting video in which we showcase young student composers. Every season, at the very end of the season, before we all break for the summer, we do a really special and important project called the Student Composer Project. We invite young students to submit their choral compositions. We select 2 to 3 every year, and the chamber chorus does a reading, a rehearsal, and a quick recording of each of these pieces so that the students have a really high quality professional recording of their works. It's really important for young composers to have these opportunities. I think it's a brilliant thing that we've been doing for almost 3 decades now. So you're about to enjoy 2 pieces that we just did at the end of the 2021-2022 season.
My name's James Devor. I'm 24, and I graduated with my undergraduate degree in music education and composition from Westchester University. And I'm currently, I just started my master's in music composition at Hartford. I Saw No Temple is the name of the piece, and it comes from a text at the end of Revelation. Relatively one of the few enlightening texts from Revelation that says that God's light is shining through the city and it doesn't need the light of man to help them. And it uses this kind of wonky groove that you more kind of hear in either a jazz-based setting or like a band-based setting, and I'm kind of putting it into a choir idiom, which I thought was kind of fun. The fact that it focuses so much on the metaphor of light and light in the temple versus like lights like lamps versus God's light is such a really great metaphor, and one that can be expressed really well musically. So that kind of worked its way into my thought process of why I liked it so much. I think the most challenging part in this was the text, or setting the text in a way that was meaningful and sensible. And there are a couple decisions I made that, because I wrote the piece 2.5 years ago now. 2 years ago? Almost 2 years ago? Yeah. But when I was looking through the score before this and kind of refreshing on what I did, I was like, I don't know if I'd make the same decision as I did 2 years ago. Encouraged me to become a composer. I think it really boils down to, it was at the end of my high school career, and I had a one teacher who noticed I was excelling, playing and performing, and was like, hey, I think you'd be doing good at this. Try it, see what happens. And that kind of started getting the ball rolling. You know, I think one of my favorite composers that I always go to, even though my music is not like theirs at all, is Philip Glass. I've always been really drawn to his music and his approach to composition, even though I don't write music that sounds very much like him. Overall, I'd kind of say it as like a neo-modernist contemporary classical, where I use a lot of styles from all kinds of things, but I still want most of my music to be thought of in that classically kind of idiom. This piece uses a lot of jazz aesthetic, but I'm no means trying to emulate jazz completely in a choir setting. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, all those kind of fun things, as J Devor Music, JDEVOR Music.
My name is Discenza. I'm 21. I study at Northwestern in the Beanan School of Music. I'm about to finish my undergrad there. Yeah, and I guess I've been composing since I was a freshman in high school. I wrote this piece actually because I wanted to write it in kind of a madrigal style, but updated. And so I found this British poem that's praising this queen named Elizabeth of Bohemia. It's going through all these different comparisons to nature, the stars are nothing when you compare them to the moon, or these flowers are fine, but what about when these ones bloom, all this stuff. As I went, I found this line in it: when Philomel her voice doth raise, and it's talking about a nightingale being the most beautiful of the birds. And I was like, what is Philomel? And I looked it up, and I found the Greek myth of Philomela, which is about this woman, I guess named Philomela, who gets like kind of brutally assaulted by this king and then like trapped in some isolated location. He like cuts off her tongue, which is like the important part because then it's like she can't speak anymore. And then she like somehow weaves this tapestry depicting like what's happened, and she like somehow gets it to her sister who comes and saves her. And all this other chaos ensues, but eventually the gods end up turning them all into birds to sort of like save Philomela and her sister from the evil king. Philomela turns into a nightingale. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, so she like gets her voice back because she can sing. And that's kind of then what I was trying to reframe the poem around. So it's like all these praisings and comparisons to nature, and then I just kind of made the part about Philomela like the like central part of it. I feel like once I found the text and really decided what I wanted the meaning to be, this like doesn't happen to me often, but most of the music kind of just flowed. I mean, I guess some things that I didn't think of initially that I ended up leaning more into were like a lot of kind of stretches and contractions in meter. So I like added in these kind of like meter changes to kind of like make eighth notes into longer notes, or like one voice kind of moves around while the other stays stagnant, and yeah, just to kind of add to like the text painting of it. I got deeper into the like aspect of text painting than I expected to, honestly. I always really loved choral music. I started singing at this church called St. Paul's K Street in DC. They had like a chorister program, and it was really great, and I feel like I had never really sung that like high level music before, and it kind of just like spurred my enjoyment of choral music, and then that I think caused me to want to write music myself. This might be becoming less true over time, but at least in the past I found that my vocal music, and especially choral music, tends to be a lot different from my instrumental music. I think like the presence of text affects it a lot, and also like the fact that on an instrument you can write any note for them to play and they don't have to have like heard it from another source first, and singers like it has to make a little bit of sense. So I feel like when it comes to like my more tonal music, this is a good example of it. Definitely in the harmony. The biggest thing is my website, which is leodiscenza.com, or it will show up if you Google me.